Good morning. Good afternoon. Not even morning. Good afternoon. It is hello. We are not usually live on a Thursday. So hello, good afternoon. Welcome. This is a weird stream for a Thursday, but I can't make it here tomorrow for our goal setting live stream. So we are bumping it a little bit earlier. So today we're going to sip some coffee. We're going to chat about goal setting and motivation. If you are part of the replay crew, welcome. Hello. Timestamps will be in the description. And before we get into all of that, if it's your first time here, hello, I'm Terrell, and this is Absolutely Studying. I chat all about study tips, organizational hacks, and goal setting to keep you on track. So today we're going to get into the top 10 reasons to switch up your study location. But first, I'm going to chat just a little bit about goals because we're not going to meet tomorrow. We're not going to meet tomorrow. So I got my pen, I got my paper, I got my goal setting workbook, which I'm going to share with you right now. And you can get your own free copy of this workbook down in the description if you want it. Otherwise, grab a pen and a paper, and let's get into this. I'm going to share my screen right now. Okay, so this is just the goal setting workbook. You can see here, this is the goal setting workbook. So we can go through and we can set some goals. So we're going to jump right over the monthly goal setting. We will have a monthly goal setting stream as well, probably in the coming weeks. I will make sure to update it on my events page on the website and on YouTube. So check the website. I'll show you where that is a little bit later, or check YouTube, subscribe on YouTube so you can get notifications when that live stream is. So we're going to jump straight into the week's goals. So what were your last week's goals? And make sure you just fill those in. We're able to balance them in your schedule and work through each of these questions step by step. We're going to be moving through a little bit quickly because this isn't the normal morning coffee cuddly workshop that we're having. I'm feeling a little bit unmotivated. I'm a little sluggish today, so I'm trying to push through and just get some motivation. And then, so how many of last week's goals were you able to compete? Where were you able to fall short? You are welcome to fill your copy out, take a pic, post it on your socials, and tag me. All of my socials are down in the description. I love seeing them. So then the next thing we want to go through is what worked and what went wrong, and what would you do differently? So as always, setting smart goals is the best type of goal, making sure your goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and most importantly, time sensitive. So what are your top goals for next week? As you know, I like to pick about 3 to 5. So I am going to go and set a couple of my goals. So I have been revamping a lot of my reading strategy pages. So I want to finish that. And that's a huge goal for me. That's a big, big job. My reading strategies, maybe I'll show you that page real quick. Let me just open in a new tab. Let me just find, let's share. Let's share that. So are we on? This is the website. This is, of course, the Learn tab. And so coming down here are the reading strategies. So I have just been doing a whole bunch of work under the reading strategies. As you can see, all of this stuff, all of these resources and articles, you are welcome to go check out the website and kind of peruse what you will. But these are the reading strategies. If you do need any help with reading strategies, I do a lot with reading and reading strategies and trying to find the best way to make the most out of your reading sessions, because reading the textbook is so incredibly important. And so my goal is to have this reading strategies hub all revamped and worked up. And by that, I mean the individual articles on here. I've been putting a lot of work into these articles. So if you are interested, check them out. So that is my big goal for the week. That is a massive goal. So my other goals are going to be pretty small compared to that one. And they'll probably just be personal goals, like 3 self-care days. And 2 lives. Those are my 3 goals for next week. So if you have your goals all set up, make sure that you leave them in the comments below, or send me a message on Instagram DMs. You know, I love them. Send me a DM, and that way you can share your goals, because sharing your goals is really important in that it helps you to make them real. It helps make them real. It helps for those goals to become a reality. It puts them out into the universe. Now somebody else knows about them. Somebody can hold you accountable. So I hope that I've been chatting long enough for you to have filled out your section of the workbook, and we can move on to the top 10 reasons to switch up your study location. So let's just have some coffee and jump right in. So this simple trick can have a massive benefit on your study sessions. So my favorite study sessions consist of settling down in my favorite study spot, a quiet nook in the hallway of my university. The desk is underneath a large bay window where the late afternoon sun pours in. I settle in with my favorite drink, an iced caramel macchiato and egg bites, and I get to work. I love this corner, especially when I have my favorite scarf on hand. I have the most comfortable and relaxing study sessions here, perhaps even more than at home. I live in Winnipeg, Canada, and it is incredibly cold here. So my university had a whole bunch of buildings, and they were all connected by these underground tunnels. So for a lot of the day, when you were moving from class to class, from lab to lab, you would go through the tunnels, especially when it was really cold, in order to avoid the minus 40-degree weather. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter if you are using degree like Celsius or if you're using Fahrenheit, because around minus 40, it's all the same. It's incredibly cold. And so we had all of these underground tunnels that you can kind of work through, and they were all, space was maximized. So they'd be these wide tunnels, and off to the side of all of these tunnels, they would have these study nooks and tables all set up. And there were times when the tunnels would break the surface of the earth. So then they would have these great big windows when you were going through that section between the 2 buildings, where the tunnel would come up high enough to peek over the ground level, and you would have these beautiful windows. So my favorite place to study was one of these places. It was kind of a little T-shaped alcove between 3 buildings, and it was about halfway above ground. So table down, it was still below ground, but about like table level all the way up. And it was quite a high ceiling. It were these big, beautiful bay windows, and you can kind of see a little courtyard and some grassy hills. And I loved studying in this place. There was lots of traffic between classes, but that didn't bother me. What I loved was sitting next to the windows and reading or studying, and you had all of these little tables, and I had this giant oversized fluffy gray knit scarf that I got from Indigo, or Chapters, Indigo, same thing. And it had pockets, and I loved that scarf. It was the most comfortable thing, and it doubled as a scarf, but it was literally almost big enough to just be a blanket. And we also had a Starbucks in our on our campus. We had a couple of them. So I would go on, especially on Fridays, I would spoil myself with an iced caramel macchiato and something to eat. And I would just go and sit between like spare blocks or classes. And I would just hang out and study in the hall, literally in the hallway of my school with these big, great big bay windows. And that was my absolute favorite place to study. So sitting here is so effortless. And while this is a very comfortable place to study, it can definitely increase my productivity. Something can be said about, and it did increase my productivity. And that's because I was so in the zone. I was so comfortable. I was so happy there. I got to like spread out over the table. But something can be said about actually switching up your study location so that you're not always somewhere that's so comfortable. Frequently switching up study spots can positively impact your ability to retrieve the information you're trying to learn. This does seem too simple to be true, but it is. I can understand how you have the same old study place. It's familiar, all your friends are there, but let's hold off just this once and let me give you 10 reasons why you should regularly switch up your study location. This simple rule will boost memorization, recall, and in turn, test scores. So before I explain how just changing the location you're studying in helps you to study better and memorize better and retain the information better, I have to tell you about mental associations. What are they and how do they work? So mental associations are the framework of data and cues that lead you to a piece of information stored in your memory. You can commit new information to memory. When you commit new information to memory, you create an intricate web of knowledge to help you retrieve it later. The more cues you have established to allow for the recall of this information, the easier it will be to retrieve during test time. So that just means the more ways you have of being able to find the information that you studied in your brain. So the more links, the more memory prompts that you have, the easier it's going to be to retrieve it during test time when you need it, because there's going to be a wider array of things that will actually lead you to that piece of information. Mental associations are like a spider's web. Each string connects a piece of information. All these facts are interlinking, leading one into another. The more intricate the web, the more links to the information, which means you have more cues to retrieve it. Having a highly connected web of mental associations makes recalling the information at test time easier and faster. This is simply because there are more chances that one piece of information will trigger another and lead you to the answer of the question. If you do want to check out this article as well, there will be a link. There should already be a link down in the description that'll lead you there. So how can changing your study location help with memory and with recall? How can something so simple as just moving from one location to another actually help you with studying? So memory cues that lead to a particular piece of information are not rooted in data alone. Every aspect of your study session can be used as a clue to retrieve the material studied during that revision session. One piece of data triggers your memory to something reviewed during a study session. Everything else learned during that study session will also be pulled to the forefront and accessed more easily. By switching up the location of your study sessions, you will be able to isolate and retrieve information based on several factors more readily. Using the site of your study session as an anchor, you can incorporate your surroundings as memory prompts. It also helps in many other ways. So let's start unpacking them. So what that's saying is, when you sit down for one study session and you study any kind of range of things, whether you're sitting there for 30 minutes or 3 hours, it doesn't matter how long you are studying, those memories are all loosely connected, even if you're studying them across different subjects. So the study session that you're in is going to have everything loosely connected to it. So if you are able to pull one piece of information from that study session, you can use the location of your study session as a prompt to bring in the rest of the information. And so that's what this next little bit is just about. So switching up your study location creates more memory prompts. Establishing a reliable network of memory cues will aid in the ease of recall. Retrieving information quickly and fluently is vital during test time. Changing up your study spot can help with this. When you choose a location to study, all of the information covered in that study session will be linked. If you sit in the same spot every single time, all material will be marked under the same clue. So everything that I have ever studied in front of that bay window is all loosely connected, because it's going to be harder for your brain to differentiate when you studied on there on Thursday versus Friday, or when you studied in there in May versus June. There are going to be some subtle differences, but all in all, it's the same location, so those start to get muddled. When you switch up your study location, you're going to have more references because the location itself is not going to be able to get muddled. You're going to be able to more easily differentiate between study sessions because they're done in such unique places. When switching the location, everything you study at the new site will be filed together under a different tab. This practice helps to clump all of the information from this specific study session together. Recalling one aspect studied can retrieve other details covered in the same period. The more ways you give yourself to access a particular piece of information, the easier it will be to retrieve at test time. Why would you want to make things any harder than they need to be? So also, studying in an unfamiliar location is going to help you cope better with distractions. Remember, I noted that in my favorite study location, between classes, there was always this big rush of people going from one building to another, getting from one class to another. And I didn't mind that. And the reason I didn't mind is because it helped me to force myself not to break focus by the chattering and the commotion that happened in the hallway while I was studying. Which would then prime me to cope better with distractions during test time. So let's look into that a little bit deeper. Studying in unfamiliar locations will help teach you to tune out strange noises and other distractions that may pull your attention away. This is a good exercise if you're easily distracted by sound or movement. If you're highly sensitive, try wearing a set of noise-blocking headphones or earbuds to muffle some of the sounds. You don't have to have anything playing on them. As your tolerance to noise and distractions increase, spend more and more time studying during your session without them. Spend more and more time during your study session without them. Exam halls often house hundreds of students, all deep in concentration. Teachers' assistants and professors wander around, and students often ask questions or squirm in their seats. Being able to focus on your exam despite these distractions can help you maintain your concentration at test time. This is especially true at the very end of exam time, when people start handing in their tests. That's when I get the most nervous, as people start getting up and walking up to the front of the lecture hall or the gymnasium, and they start handing in their tests and leaving. I start getting more and more nervous. And usually I'm trying to check over my test, because I do check over my exams, 2 or 3 times before I hand them in, just to make sure that I didn't miss any questions mostly. to make sure that all of my answers are clear and legible. And sometimes I will double check on harder questions to make sure that I'm happy with the answer. So I will go over it a couple of times, which means it takes me a little bit longer than other people to write my exam. So people are usually getting up and getting ready to walk out. And that always makes me nervous because I'm always thinking, how much longer do I have? Everybody else is done. Am I going to be the last one here? And those are just anxious thoughts that are so readily available to jump into your brain when you're writing an exam, but you have to kind of push through and focus and keep yourself focused on your exam so that you actually go through and you are doing the checks that you wanted to do. So that is also really helpful with studying in different locations because it's unfamiliar and there's usually people wandering around, and when you're in an unfamiliar location, every little sound, every little like shift is very noticeable. And so if you are able to kind of tune that out and stay focused on your work, that's going to help you in exam time when your nerves are already sky high and you need to do the same. So changing your study location can also help you to boost long-term retention. Regularly switching up your study location creates links from the information under study directly to the atmosphere in which it's absorbed. Having these additional links to the data will boost memory retention. Using exercises that layer and cross-link information, such as varying your study location and types of study activities, will stabilize these pathways, reinforcing them. This can make retention of the data more accessible for longer, helping to make sure that you don't draw a blank during the final. So it's making those mental associations and memory cues even stronger than what you might expect. They are boosting them and fortifying them and helping you to make even more cross links. These pathways will turn into well-worn trails. The more links the more links you make to a piece of information, the stronger embedded that piece of information will be. That means you will have to spend less time memorizing it and relating it to the concepts. So there are people who cannot necessarily just roam around the town all over the place and start switching up your study location all the time. So if you cannot find somewhere to study every single time, which is completely understandable, I don't expect you to have a different study location every single time you study. But another thing you can do to still take advantage of this trick is to try different rooms in your house, different seats at the library, different positions at a table, etc. If you can't frequent a variety of places, try to vary the spots within the locales you do go to. If you must study at home, don't always sit at the same place. Try switching up the room in which you do your revision in, or move the furniture around often. This can help you to take advantage of changing locations without even leaving your home. When you go to the library, switch it up. Don't use your favorite table in the back corner every time. Try sitting in a new seat on each visit. The same idea applies to the cafe and study halls. If you have a favorite cafe, switch up the table and sit at a different direction you face. If you have a favorite cafe, switch up the table you sit at or even the direction you face. These half measures can still create helpful mental associations by incorporating novel placement in a familiar location. So switching up study spots also makes retrieving information faster. Having extra memory cues can help you to track down information more quickly. Having these extra memory cues can help you to track down information more quickly. When you recall that study session, Everything you learned will flood you. I have to talk with my hands. If I don't talk with my hands, it's just all over. When you recall that study session, everything you learn will flood back to you. The memories of concepts you studied will be intertwined with the noises you heard and the smells you tasted, or any smells or tastes you experienced. This intricate web will pull the memories back more vividly and bring along everything else linked to it with those same sensations. Making a breakthrough at a unique location can help to keep it all in the forefront of your mind with a simple trick. You may even find the confidence or excitement you felt during that situation when everything started to come together returns to you. So this is actually something that they studied before, and it kind of lends to how intricately smells are to memory. Like, smell is one of your senses that is most closely linked to memory. And it just has to do with the placement of receptors and in your brain and how it's processed. I won't get into that too deep because that is a whole other tangent that I will be chatting about for an hour. And these live streams are long enough. So when you can link memories to smells or tastes, even if it is something that you're doing at home, regardless of where it is, it's going to help you to bring all of the related memories that have that same kind of trigger with it. And if you studied all of those things in the same location, all of those things are going to be linked and easier to bring back to you. Another trick that people use is chewing an odd flavored gum. Like, I remember there was a few years back where people were chewing like dill pickle gum during study sessions and then bringing the dill pickle gum with them to the final exam so that the taste would be linked. And that is another whole thing. So you could also try dill pickle gum, I guess. The ambiance of the location you study in adds to memory cues. So smell is perhaps the sense that is most closely linked to memory. The smells, tastes, and sounds of the environment will play a part in the cues established to the information studied. Layering these sensations by reading aloud and other revision tricks that use multiple senses can help you to cement data in your cerebrum. Layering recall techniques like this will help stack mental associations. This means you're going to do more to help memorize the specific concept than just sitting there and reading alone. You can make the most of your study time by combining memorization techniques with active recall activities and helping your study sessions keeping your study sessions fresh and focused. So when you do study in the same place all of the time, it just gets too comfortable, essentially. When you're overly relaxed, it's tough to stay focused. Your mind often starts to wander. You might even settle in a little too much and drift off. Changing locations frequently is going to keep you on your toes. You will stay extra alert because you're in unfamiliar surroundings. You're not likely to fall asleep studying in a cafe you've never been to. The unfamiliarity of the surroundings alone will keep you awake and vigilant. This is not to say that you have to be anxious or stressed about your surroundings, just that this awareness keeps you sharp. The discomfort of being somewhere new might also help you during test time. You're forced to take your exams in an unfamiliar location. For most people, the only time you will go to this hall is for finals. This can be great practice if you need This can be great practice if you're used to writing and concentrating in unfamiliar locations. So the fact that it's an unfamiliar location and you're sitting down and you're getting to work will help you to sit down and get to work during your exam time, because the anxiety and stress and unfamiliarity with your surroundings will not be something new. So less comfort often translates to more awareness and focus. Not allowing yourself to be so comfortable will help you to summon extra focus. It's the same reason exam rooms are generally chilly. Exam rooms are pretty cold, so students can stay alert. A 3-hour exam might put you to sleep if it's too warm and comfortable. To discourage this from happening, the exam room is kept just a little bit chilly, so you can never get too comfortable. Can you imagine if someone failed a test because they fell asleep writing it? Professors would be relentless hunting for sleeping students. You'd probably be able to hear snoring from all corners of the room if it were too warm and inviting. Instead, students are kept at the edge of their seats and gripping their sweaters as they anxiously write their exams. The more alert you are, the more focused. The more alert you are, the more focus you can channel into your study session. This slight discomfort doesn't necessarily need to be due to temperature. It can be just because you're in a new and unfamiliar location. So yes, if you feel like they are keeping exam rooms cold to torture you, that is exactly why they are keeping exam room cold. By switching up study locations, you're less likely to bump into friends who will distract you. This here, this is me. If you study in the same place all the time, you will be much more likely to encounter people you know. It's natural to allow yourself to be distracted, even if it's just a simple hello. Regaining your focus and getting back into the flow after a disruption can take a while, particularly if you finally found your rhythm. Unfortunately, we don't want to be rude and just ignore people. If you vary your study location often, this will be less likely to happen, and you just may find some hidden gems throughout the city. There are amazing study locations just waiting to be discovered. Branch out from Starbucks and try a little local cafe. Pick up some lunch at a quiet restaurant or deli and eat while you work. You can probably find a little corner to study anywhere you go. Take your study session as a chance to explore. I went to this little sushi place once. It was on Portage Avenue, right across the street from the U of W. I didn't go to the U of W, but I went there for lunch with a friend one day. And going in there, they had these giant booths. Like, they were these great big booth tables, and their tables were as wide arm to arm. And this U of W students would go there, and I think they had like a happy hour sushi or an all you can eat sushi or something. And people would go there and they would just order a whole bunch of sushi, and they would just sit there and study in the booths. And so when we walked in, they were just students sitting in all of these booths with just their paperwork and their laptops and their homework out, and they were just sitting there studying. And I thought, this would be a great place, because it was nice and like dimly lit, but it was bright enough for you to see, and it was quiet. And I was thinking, this would actually be a great place to hang out for an hour, eat just by yourself and study. And there was so many people doing it. There's so many people. Varying where you hold your study sessions will help you to do better on tests. Each of these factors translates to better grades on exams. You will have established more memory cues to the information, had fewer distractions to pull away from your focus, and you paid more attention. So this is a relatively simple trick with a lot of benefits. These, combined with the ability to concentrate more effectively under uncomfortable situations, can help you to produce better quality answers during test time. Often about 40 to 50% of your mark can depend on the final exam. Because of this, finding ways to improve recall and cope with exam stress is essential. And cope with exam stress is essential. Anything that helps you prepare more readily and excel on your exam is invaluable. Switching up study locations takes little effort, but boasts so many benefits. These are just some tools to help you venture out and find your new study spot. So these are things that I already mentioned. Me and my giant. Today, I actually have a blanket. This is my office blanket that I like to get warm. It's got like the little fuzzy, like fleecy inside. It's like knit on the outside. Reminds me of my scarf, but not quite as much. But if you are out in public, you cannot take your blanket with you. So the next best thing is a scarf. So this is a nice, great, big, fuzzy gray scarf and some noise canceling headphones. You don't need anything special, just something to cancel out noises and help you. I do prefer the over the ear ones because I find that the earbuds, if I leave them in for hours and hours on end, my ears get itchy. So I tend to like the over the ear ones a little bit better if I'm going to be wearing them for a really long time. Switching up your study location does not mean that you have to find a new place to study every single time you sit down. You'll find new favorite spots that you can travel to discover new areas and discover new areas to study. It's great to have a wide selection of amazing study locations to choose from and then just cycle through them. And also make sure to check out my free study guide Principle if you do need some help finding activities to fill your study sessions and create more mental associations. It does have 20 study activities that you can plan and track through the semester to ensure you fully understand the course material. It has 8 pages, including a Pomodoro planner, a confidence tracker, and a confidence tracker to ensure that you plan your study sessions and build confidence in each concept. You can download it for free right here in the description. You can download it in the little show notes in the description. And if you check out the link to the article, you can also get it there. So that is all of it. That is why you should always switch up your study location, whether you do it symbolically by actually switching up the location within some of your favorite study locations. I had a handful of places that I studied. So I would study at the university. I would study at the clinic. I would study at home. And I would try and switch up, especially at the university. I would try not to always study in my favorite spot, but it did win out quite a few times. When I wandered out, I'd try and wander and study somewhere else at least once a week. So I might go to a library, I might go to a cafe, or I might grab some lunch by myself and just take my textbook with me. And do it that way. But I would always try and have at least 1 or 2 of my study sessions a week, somewhere novel. And that's just to keep me alert, help me to prepare for exam time, because I do have a ton of exam anxiety. And I would always get really nervous when going out and studying. I get really nervous, or not going out and studying, well, also going out and studying, but I'd always get really, really nervous during exam times. No matter how dedicated I was to my study routine, I would still get really nervous. I would still get just irrationally afraid of exam time, even though I knew I was going to get a good mark, or even though I knew I studied really, really hard. And so this is one thing that really helped me with my exam anxiety, because I was used to the anxious feeling, and then it would subside just that much faster. So I would always still be nervous going to the exam. But then when I actually sat down, I would get comfortable faster, and I would be able to get on to doing my best work in my exam by like answering questions better and just getting settled in. So again, if you have any questions, all of my contact is below. Email me or catch me on any of my socials. Join me again on I think we're gonna do this next Tuesday. Let's tentatively say Tuesday. I will put it up on the events page on my website. Let's just take a look. Here, let's share, and I can show you, share screen. So for the website, I don't have it scheduled yet, but here we go, my website. Then we can go to events, and the events are always here, right up here on the events screen. So I will put up next week, I will put up the events. I need to get all of the December events scheduled too. So I'm going to work on the schedule. Let's put that down as a goal for next week. So let's do schedule events. I have training tomorrow and through the weekend. So I have been just a little bit nervous to commit to days, which is why I can't do tomorrow morning. So I have we are expanding at our clinic on the clinic side. I am expanding. So I'm hiring some new people, just hired some new doctors. So, yeah, that's a lot of growth. And so I'm always so nervous to commit to a date in case it doesn't work, but I'm going to commit to dates. I'm just going to pull the Band-Aid off and I'm just going to do it. So let's just live a little dangerously and commit to some dates. All right. So all of the events are scheduled. Again, if you need that goal setting workbook for your goal setting, or if you need the study planner, head down into the description and grab those. They're both linked there, as well as a link to the article that we were covering today. And while you're down there, like this video and subscribe to my channel. I put out a new video every week, and they are always about study tips, organizational hacks, and homework help to help you through the study struggle. And until next time, I hope you have an amazing adventure.